I'm not making any money talking these days. Good Christ. I'm a dick, folks. I'm not gonna lie to you. Still am. I guess I am a decent guy because I'm a fucking jerk, and I'm not a jerk. Apparently, I'm a dick. I'm not an awful guy, but I've done so much ridiculous stuff. I'm an awful guy. Hey, what's happening? 40-Year-Old Boy Podcast. It is episode 29. It's one of my favorite numbers. 29. It's got a 2 and a 9 in it. Also, two of my favorite numbers. Put them together, makes my favoriteest number, 29. That's a lie. I don't like 2 or 9. Put them together, though, and I like them. I like 29. What's that say about me? Numerology witches? Is there anybody out there who knows that stuff? There might be. Maybe someone out there is a numerologist. Is that even an occupation? I don't know if it is. Is that like a psychic, where they have like their house and the sign outside, numerologist? What would you do? You'd stop in and just say, hey, hello, 8. That's what you'd say, and then they would analyze that, and then you'd go on your way, and then you'd pay your money. There's a psychic by our house who lives in a house, and they have a sign out. That just seems so weird to me, like to open your house to people that you're going to bamboozle. Because psychics aren't real, folks. I tell my wife that all the time. I went to a psychic when I was a kid. You look at you with your bottle-eyed, goggle-eyed, bottle-eyed. Her eyes were huge. Let's put it that way. Like big. Her eyes were like saucers, folks. Like saucer men. Her eyes were not like saucermen. So Karen, she always talks about the psychic and the palm reading, and I'm not. That's not for me. I went to a psychic when I was a kid. When I was, what was I? 17? I think I was 17, and she told me stuff about my dad and all that, and but again, it was all that leading nonsense. They're like, tough relationship with your dad, huh? Well, yeah, yeah, he hasn't been around. Is he? You feel a little estranged from him. Well, he's dead. That would definitely make us estranged. I certainly, after he died, we didn't talk nearly as much as we used to. I can tell you that. I've tried. I mean, every time I schedule lunch with the man, he decides he's not going to show up. I don't get it. Look, just because you're in the ground doesn't mean you can't join me for a hamburger at some point. Who do you think you are, old man? Why, I oughta. My dad, a wonderful guy. All right, so here's my dad. We were watching, here's what I'm a kid and we're watching Night of the Living Dead, which is a movie that has left an indelible mark on me. I love it to the point where now every time I go into a place, I think of what I would do if these zombies were to attack while I was in that place. And I'm not even kidding. And then I find out that Mel Brooks' kid writes the zombie war books, and I buy them. I haven't read them yet because I'm frightened to read them because I've lived my life like that, and now I'm mad that a guy wrote a book about it and basically stole like my thing and who I was, because I've done it ever since I was a kid. Like whenever I'd be in school, I'd be like, all right, and I would always have these things where it was like, and for some reason I was always trapped with my best friends. Like whenever I was trapped in a zombie war, I was always like, oh, cool, I'm with my friends, and then we'd figure out what to do, because I guess that made it more palatable that the flesh-eating zombies were trying to get us, that I could still joke around with Max and Dennis. I have no idea. It's like, hey, Jeff, the zombies are outside. So what? You and I are here. That's great. I mean, if I would have been trapped with people I didn't like, that would have been awful. That's really, what if it's just me and like my teachers? See, that's not a zombie war I want to be a part of. If I'm trapped in the school with like, it's me and Mr. Harvey, that's not good. I actually push Mr. Harvey outside. I go, have at him, zombies. Clean house on Harvey. Eat that big mustache. You know what? Take Werner von Georges. Eat Mr. Georges. He's got a limp. He's not going far. Mr. Georges was another history teacher, and he talked like Lawrence Welk, like a German Lawrence Welk, like that kind of thing. And he had a limp. And his name was Mr. Georges, but we used to call him, his name was Werner. Like his name was, and so we'd call him Werner von Georges, even though he wasn't, his name wasn't von Georges, but we thought he was like a Nazi war criminal. When you're a kid, you invent things about your teachers. And he had a limp, like a foot dragging limp, like something out of Dr. Strangelove. This guy. All right, so what was I talking about? Zombie war. So we who cares about the zombie war? All right, so whatever. Whenever I go to a place, I think of what's going to happen if the zombies attack. Like if I'm at Ralph's, if I'm at the grocery store, I'm like, all right, we would have to seal off the doors, and then we could eat the produce first because that would go bad. So you got to make sure you eat that, and then the meat. But then you got canned goods galore, and you can survive in a grocery store. And my zombie war always then. I'm always like up on the roof looking down at the zombies, just like in the movies, and then I'm trying to figure out how to get from building to building, and I'm like, well, how would we do it? So whatever. So enjoy that particular psychosis. But anyway, I'm watching Night of the Living Dead as a kid. And I'm with in my family, and my dad is there. And then at the end of the movie, if you've ever seen it, there's a gentleman who's survived the entire movie of Night of the Living Dead. He's the guy you're with the entire time. He's a black guy, and he survives. And finally, at the end of the movie, he puts his head up in the house, and the hillbillies shoot him because they're having such fun hunting zombies that they don't even care anymore if it's real people. So they shoot him, and it's a big story about. There's a racism parable and everything else within Night of the Living Dead. It's a great movie. And as a kid, I'm completely like, it's like, oh no, I can't believe that because you're with that guy the whole time. He survives the zombies. He survives the little girl in the basement, and he makes it through the zombie holocaust alive. And then they shoot him. And I'm sitting there and I'm bummed out. I'm trying to comprehend everything that's happened. And my dad stands up and goes, "Yep, they shot the spade," and walks out. That's what my dad boils Night of the Living Dead down to. 5 words. Yep, they shot the spade. Walks out. Thanks, Dad. You're a great guy. How about if you go get drunk and pass out? All right, so. And he did. Yeah, that's my dad. What was I going to tell you, folks? Oh, here, I'll throw this your way. Why not? I'm going to throw out a special. Last week's episode, we were discussing young Lily, and by the way, Lily and I just had a long discussion about her laughing. Just people who keep sending me emails about it, just know that I talked to her because finally I was like, because I wanted to make sure that she's laughing because she thinks I'm funny. I'm like, look, you're not trying to help me in any way, are you? Like, you're not throwing me some weird laugh preserver. Ha! I just made that up, folks. Come on, that was really good. A laugh preserver, like a life. Never mind. God damn it! You know what? People suck it. If you don't like that and you don't think it was funny, suck it. So I wanted to make sure that that's all genuine and original. And now by talking about it, I'm sure it's going to weird her out even more. Because then she looked at me like, "Yeah, I'm laughing because you're funny." And I'm like, "All right, that's all I want to hear. I just want to make sure you don't think you've got to help me in some weird way as I meander and talk in circles about jerking off all the time." And she's just like, "No, I'd tell you if you weren't funny," which I find even weirder. Seriously, wouldn't that be strange? Even during the show, I was like doing something, she just went, "Oh Christ, that's not funny at all." What? That's even weirder than fake laughing. If you were to like step up with boy, that sucked. That story was awful. That changes the whole complexion of the show. I think if she becomes a heckler in the middle of it, that would be terrible. So so I wanted to make sure that was squared away. So I told you last week about Lily and her jokes, and we started talking about her being like a clown, and then we said hot clown, and I said, yeah, hot clown. I go, that sounds like a sex thing, like a hot Carl or a donkey punch or an angry pirate or a Cleveland steamer or any of those things, a blumpkin. You know what I'm talking about, folks. And so I said, oh, that sounds like, I said, send me some letters and tell me what you think a hot clown is, and you did. Surprisingly, I received a neighborhood of, a lot of emails from people with what they thought a hot clown would be. And so I'm going to say congratulations to Jay and his wife from Dayton, Ohio, because they came up with my favorite one, which is when a girl is blowing you, you pinch her nose and squeeze it the whole time so it's red, and then you blow on her face like clown makeup. That's a hot clown. You pinch your nose till it's like really red, and then you pull out and shoot on her face like clown makeup, and you rub it in. That's Jay and his wife came up with that. I got a feeling Jay came up with that and then tagged his wife in the letter just because he didn't want to look like a freak. Where he's like, "Hey, look, I thought of what a hot clown," and his wife's like, "You're disgusting." That was her whole part in it. Jay's like, he's sitting there, and he's got a visor on and an adding machine and a compass and a protractor, and he's trying to figure out what a hot clown could be, and he's making drawings, and he's coming up with schematics, and he's like got the Kama Sutra, and he's cutting it up like a ransom note, and he's putting figures next to figures and trying to line them up, and then finally that's what he comes up with. You pinch her nose till it's red, and then you pull out and blow on her face. And his wife just went, "You are fucking awful." And he goes, "Hey, my wife and I figured out what a hot clown is." And then he actually typed it. That's the best part. All of you typed them, but that was my favorite one. Mainly, I have to admit, it was my favorite one just because of the fact that he tried to tag his wife in. He put his wife into it. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm sure your wife was definitely involved, Jay. That's fine. You keep telling yourself that. Your wife, she doesn't even listen to the show. Like, she watches you. You're out in a workshop somewhere putting this all together on a giant blackboard that you purchased. And she's like, "What are you doing?" "Hot clown, you're in, right?" "No, I'm not in." So there you go. Thank you to Jay and his wife. Yeah, thank you to Jay's wife, actually, for tolerating Jay. Hey, this happened today. This is weird. I'm in the shower today, and I'm taking a shower, getting cleaned up. And nothing illicit going on in the shower this time. I'm just cleaning up. I'm sudsing up with a little minty soap, a little scrub soap, minty shampoo, and I use a minty facial scrub. I like mint. So I'm in there and I'm getting clean, and I look out the window, and there's an apartment building right next door to mine, second floor. Just a guy looking at me showering. Guy watching me in the shower. And it was pretty fucking weird. I'm not gonna lie to you, folks. I looked up and he's literally just sitting there, like, with that 1,000-yard stare. Like, I'm like some Vietnam vet who's thinking about the time when he showered in a hut somewhere. I don't know what was on his face, but he stared at me, and I shower with music. All right, I'll tell you that. Like, I have a radio in the shower, so it's like I blast music. So I guess I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt and thinking that he either just liked the music I was playing, like, and he was leaning by the window and just looking and listening, but I'm thinking at the angle he's looking at, he's probably got a pretty good shot at my crank. I mean, he can see that going to work, and and also when you're getting cleaned up, you're washing you're doing business. And the thing is, I've done this. Like, I lived in an apartment building once that had I was on the second floor, and when I would hear the shower, because there was a girl who would shower in the next apartment building, and I would hear the shower come on, and I would actually go and just watch. But I had the good sense to have the lights out and not be seen. You know what I mean? Because we've done that. You've done that a million times. I mean, in the apartment I live in now, there was a girl, Frenchie's daughter, who used to get naked. Like, she would walk around. We called her Frenchie's daughter because the people that were French. So Karen and I would be like, "Oh, the Frenchies." And then their daughter came to stay with them for a summer. And then one night I was in the house, and Karen comes over and hands me a note, which is really strange. It's very odd. But Karen handed me a note, and it just said, "Frenchie's daughter is naked." And I'm like, "What is this weird note? Thank you." And then I looked out the window. I looked out our screen door, and because they were directly across from our apartment, and you looked, and she's just walking around the house naked. And God bless your wife for giving you a note that's like, "Hey, guess what? The hot 21-year-old across the way is walking around fucking sans clothing." So I mean, if they're naked, you got, and you know what? I kind of understand this guy too, because if somebody's naked, you got to look, right? You got to look if somebody's naked. How many times have you seen like a naked homeless guy, and you're like, "All right, well, I got to take that. That guy's naked." And you look. You've never seen a naked homeless guy? No. I have. You go down to the beach or you go anywhere. And in San Diego, the worst one ever. Oh no, Hollywood, the worst one ever. San Diego, I saw naked homeless guys. San Diego's the worst place I've ever been for homeless. The worst. Speaking of Night of the Living Dead, you walk out into like the city square. It looks like if the homeless ever went, "You know what? Let's just start eating everybody." That would be San Diego Night of the Living Dead, because there's that many homeless people, and they would completely overrun the population. You would just see, people fleeing from deadly shopping carts. You don't want to get trapped in San Diego by the homeless, because I really think they could take over if they wanted. But there was a naked guy. I saw a naked guy in a wheelchair, just like rolling around, and I'm like, wow, that is awful and ballsy at the same time, But then it was hot when I was in San Diego, and it's like a wheelchair. It's like that's kind of like leathery, and I'm thinking, oh, his balls are going to totally stick to that when he tries to stand up. And plus, he probably hasn't showered or anything, so it's like he's extra sticky. The homeless are extra sticky. I think we can all agree on that, right? The homeless just got to be like, that's why, you ever give a homeless guy a buck and then he wants to shake your hand? It's like, no thanks, I don't want a handful of caramel. Like, because they're sticky. They are. The homeless are sticky. They're like human Post-it notes. So, I was talking about naked. Oh, so naked homeless. So this is the worst one. I'm in Hollywood one time, and this is back in the bus days, folks, when everything was horrible, and I had to take the bus. When literally I had to go, 4 miles to my house, and I took a bus for 9 hours, that kind of thing. So instead of taking a straight line and getting me home in half an hour, they'd take this circuitous route, through Kansas to get me to Orange County. But anyway, I'm on the bus, and then I get off and I'm at a bus stop, and there's a guy, and he's got his back to me. He's a black guy, and I don't think of it. He's just got his back to me, and then he turns around, and he's jerking off at the bus stop, and I'm not gonna lie to you folks. Honestly, at first, I thought he was holding a log because he had just this gigantic, a monstrous crank. It just and turn around, and then he's working it and he's just looking at people, like it's not even. It's that kind of weird jerking off. Like he's not even, he's not doing it for pleasure. He was just daring anybody to say anything about it. And because he would turn around, he'd look you right in the face with this, like, yeah, so what? And all you're praying is that he's just not going to go off. You know what I mean? You're just like, all right, you know what? Go ahead and jerk off, weirdo in the city who's like freaky and weird. You're just praying for a cop to come by. And quite frankly, if the cop would have come by, it would have run into his cock because it was huge. It was Dwayne-like. It was like that big, like monstrous. So yeah, that's the weirdest homeless, like, because I've seen like naked homeless down at the beach. You see naked homeless guys and stuff, but this was real bad. This was a guy actually naked and aware of it and daring you to do something about it, and I backed out. Like I wanted nothing to do with it. And boy, if you thought, and you know what's weird is like a homeless guy jerking off, like he's sticky. Like I said, they're sticky. Like that can't be pleasurable. Like, it would be sticky and would cause all sorts of friction and weirdness. Oh, that's not good. But yeah, a homeless guy in a wheelchair is always creepy too. That always freaks me out. Karen and I saw a fight at 7-Eleven just like 2 weeks ago. A homeless guy in a wheelchair and a homeless guy on a bike. Like, so these homeless guys are mobile. Like they have the wherewithal to get around, and they're begging, but then they're fighting with one another. And the guy on the bike is threatening to kick the guy in the wheelchair's ass. And Karen's just like, this is going to be awful. And I'm going, this is going to be great. Because that I want to see. There's nothing better than stumbling into a homeless fight. That's great to see them. You don't want them to come after you, and you don't want to have to get involved in a homeless fight. Because, again, even if you one-punch a homeless guy, you're going to have fucking caramel hand. You don't want that. You fucking one-punch a homeless guy, he hasn't washed that face in weeks, perhaps months. So your hand is covered in whatever, filth that guy's got all over his grill. Granted, you knocked him out and it was clean. It was a clean shot. But still, at the same time, you can't rejoice in it because you got to look at your hand and go, Christ, I better go boil my hand. But when homeless fights homeless, it's like, ape must not kill ape. Homeless must not kill homeless. But I disagree. Homeless must kill homeless. I must see homeless square off in a battle. I actually pitched this, folks, before bum fights, those dicks. I worked for the internet for Load Media. This is back in '98. I was the head writer, and my friend Pat Francis and I were the head writers. We got hired, and we were writing sketches for the internet that never saw the light of day. We wrote like 350 sketches for Load. I found the discs. I have them at my house, and I have to figure out how to put them up on YouTube and stuff because they're fucking hilarious. Granted, they're hilarious to me. Pat and I watched. There's like I said, there's probably 350 sketches. I think maybe 10 of them hold up. But they were funny at the time, man, and we were getting paid, and it was hilarious. But I actually was pitching ideas, and one of the ideas I had was for a homeless Olympics. And I wanted to get homeless guys, and we would give them lunch and food, and actually have them compete in homeless activities. Have them compete, like put something in a dumpster, in 2 separate dumpsters, and have them go in and try to find who could find it the fastest. And and shopping cart races, of course, would be of the premium. And so I pitched this idea, and the guy who ran the place was a dick. The guy who ran Load Media was just a jag-off, this guy named Morgan. And he had all these horrible ideas, but even he, when I pitched the Homeless Olympics, looked at me and was like, oh, come on. I'm like, what? I go, come on, you want to do this? It's like, and this is in '98, folks. I would have been at the cutting edge of exploiting the homeless. Because this is before bum fights. Because I even wanted to have, I even pitched that. I was like, well, dude, we could have like homeless people fight. And he's just like, come on, dude. And he thought I was crazy. And then Bum Fights comes out. And granted, it's despicable. There's no doubt. But you know what? The bums, if they want to fight for a sandwich, let the bums fight for a sandwich. Maybe there's more dignity in that to them than there is in, eating a piece of gum they found on the ground. I don't know if the homeless chew gum that they find on the ground. I have no idea. They're busy drinking. But I just can't even imagine. And the worst is when, a guy comes up to you who's like, I had a guy come up and he was wearing a polo shirt. He was clean, like a young man, polo shirt and New Balance, and he wanted money. Get the fuck away from me. You want money. You're wearing nicer shoes than I have on. I can't give you any money. You young jagoff. Oh, horrible. Horrible? Yeah, horrible and horrifying. That's what it was. But all right, I'll tell this story. I shouldn't. Whatever. When I was in high school, no, it was just after high school, I think. Was it after, or was I still in school? My mom had to go out of town, and my mom went to Phoenix. We lived in Chicago at the time, near Chicago, Bolingbrook, and my mom had to go to Phoenix to help my grandmother. My grandmother was ill, so my mom went to stay with her for a few weeks, and leaving me with my 3 little brothers in charge of the house. And she put my name on the bank accounts. She put my name on the checking account and on the savings account in case of emergency. Now, when you're 17 years old, an emergency is you ran out of beer. Not really for me because I don't drink, but you know what I mean? An emergency is, oh my God, I can't believe there's no McDonald's in the house. So my mom's out of town, and she's there, and she trusts me. Why wouldn't you? I'm a good guy. And this is after Lenny's been removed from the house. Lenny got kicked out, so he's long gone. My mom's gone, so I decide, you know what I'm going to do? Let's have a party. So we have a party, and this is a party where I actually get drunk at this party. And again, it's so funny. I've been drunk 10 times in my life. And it seems like now every time I tell a story, it's me getting drunk. But I mean, it's because, these things have happened the 10 times I've gotten drunk in my life. So I get so drunk at my own party that here's what I got drunk on. I wasn't planning on drinking. That's how it always was. I wasn't planning on drinking. But my mom had booze in the house. She had Yukon Jack, which is just like the kind of thing you would dip a spoon in to clean the rust off of it. I mean, it's just that. It's a rough liquor. So my mom had like a 5th of Yukon Jack. And so I started drinking that with cranberry juice, chasing it with cranberry juice from the fridge. I didn't know if it tasted good. I didn't care. I just wanted to taste the Yukon Jack out of my mouth. But I would like slug some Yukon Jack, and then I would slug the cranberry. So I get so drunk. Me and my friend Brian Racine, we have our arms around each other, and we're throwing up together in the sink. And this is at my own house. Here's how drunk I am, folks. I am having a party at my house, and I go to bed. My house is full of people drinking and partying and hanging out. And by the way, I have little brothers. My little brothers are upstairs in like my mom's bedroom. And at the time, my brother Scott was like 10, I think. Was this? No, this is 85. Yeah. So he's upstairs, and he's 12. Like, and the girls in the party are all upstairs with my little brothers. They're like, oh, how cute, oh, and they're drinking and they're talking to my little brothers, and there's people aren't. I mean, things are getting broken in my house. Like my mom had this coffee pot that was like a French press coffee pot, and I broke that. I was so drunk, I elbowed it and knocked it over. I tore a tapestry off the wall. I'm the one doing all the fucking damage in this house. I throw up. My friend Brian and I are puke, and I break stuff. And like I said, I physically go down to my room. I go downstairs and go to bed. My house is full of people having a party, and I go to bed. So luckily, my brother Lenny comes over, and he comes over to the party because, it was one of those things where everybody in town knew about it. And thank God, he takes some semblance of control. And he kind of gets everybody, taken care of. And he comes and gets me after a couple hours and goes, dude, you need to get up here. And we finally get everybody out of the house. And then the next day, the house is still just destroyed. And then Brian and I go to Wendy's. I remember that, going to Wendy's and eating salad to try to soak up the Yukon Jack that was in my stomach. I drank an entire 5th of Yukon Jack and was just vomiting and just destroyed the house. I destroyed my own stuff. So then I've got to try to find this French press coffee pot that my mom bought at some antique place. So I'm like, all right, I got to try to duplicate that. So in the meantime, I'm spending money. We're eating out. I'm doing all this stuff, and then I have the next night. Why not another party? So I invite everybody over to the house, and we're there, and we have loud music, and we're partying, and then the police come to my house. So this is great. The police come, and we're all sitting, like everybody's in the house around the kitchen table. Everybody dumps their liquor in my mom's plants. Everybody just starts dumping liquor in all of my mom's houseplants as I'm talking to the cops at the door and not letting them in. Finally, I let them in when the coast is kind of clear, and they walk around and they look at it. They see my little brothers and I, and they're like, "Where's your mom?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, she should be home any minute." And usually she allows me to have, because it's funny, this time wasn't even planned to be a party. The party was, on Friday night, and then Saturday it was a thing where we all got together and went, "Wait, what are we doing? What's going on tonight?" And every head just turned at me. And I'm like, all right, let's go to my house. And this time it was a much smaller gathering. It wasn't really a party. It was like 15 friends just drinking, getting ready to go out. And then everybody got loaded. And then, like I said, the cops came with the music, and we dumped everything in the plants, and they have wound up dying eventually. So the cops come, and I'm like, all right, well, we got to get out of here because I'm not going to have them come back. So we actually go to a midnight movie. And first we go to the Golden Bear, which is a restaurant that's like a Denny's in Chicago. I don't know if they're still around. And I dine and dash. We go ahead and we just order some food, and we split. I used to dine and dash all the time, actually. One time we went to Denny's, and my friend Jim Harbin was there. And Jim Harbin is like, you know what, dude? Just give me the check. You guys go out the front door. I'll run out the back door, and you guys pick me up, and we'll go. And I go, okay, that's fine. So we're in Denny's, and we're the way to do it in dine and dash. If a whole group of you is dining and dashing, you just leave one at a time. That's the thing. You just and until eventually there's just like one dude there sipping coffee, and then he tries to get out of there. So I would do it all the time. Like the way I like to do it, however, is I would go to the counter. We would all get separate checks, and everybody would be paying their check. And as they were paying their check, I would slide my check underneath the cash register. So I guess that was my calling card. Like eventually they would find it and be like, "Oh, son of a bitch!" Terrible, just an awful person. So this time at Denny's, however, Jim Harbin decides he's going to take the hit, he's going to take the check, and he's going to run out the back door. So we're in the front, and Jim he had a few cocktails in him, so his timing wasn't great. We're at the front and we're leaving, and Jim gets up and just runs. Chinese fire drill, runs through the fucking Denny's. Like, I mean, that's not going to attract any attention. By the way, Jim, we're not outside yet. The car isn't running. We're still in the fucking restaurant, dope. But Jim was crazy. He was insane. So he just didn't think about it. He got up, dead sprint, runs as hard as he can to the emergency exit at the back of the Denny's, and just runs and blasts the door to go outside, and gets stood up like he was hit by a fucking linebacker in a goal line stand. The door won't open. He runs as hard as he can and just boom, smashes into the door, gets straightened up, and all you hear is the fucking alarm goes off. He runs, slams into the door, the alarm goes off, the door doesn't open, he's standing there, everybody in the restaurant just turns and looks at him, and he's holding the check. Has it in his hand. He just looks and Jim Harbin had this weird laugh. Like, I can't even describe it. It was just this psychotic chuckle. I'll try to do it, but I'm not going to do it justice. But he did it right, literally, like, bang, the alarm's going off. Everybody's looking, the waitress, everybody, and he just turns on and he goes, and he just, like, busted, throws his hands up, and we have to pay the check. Tried to run out of the building. Just runs as hard as he can and just wham, gets stood up. Like fucking Urlacher blasted him in the hole. The door doesn't open. And then it was so funny. We get in the car and we're just like, you are an asshole, Jim. What the fuck, dude? And then he actually says, you know what? We should sue them. Look, what are you talking about? And he goes, we should sue them, man. That's like a fire exit. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, it didn't open. Like, if there was a fire, we'd all be dead right now. And I'm like, wow. You're going to use that to try to get out of this, you idiot? But then, of course, after like 15 minutes, we'd all pretty much talked ourselves into it. We're like, hey, yeah, that is a fire exit. Those dicks. You know what? We could have died in that Denny's, for God. We ought to sue these bastards. Bunch of 16-year-old kids with a trunk full of Goebbels beer. Yeah, we're going to file a class action lawsuit against Denny's for locking their back door and preventing us from stealing pancakes. Way to go, fellas. Fucking brain trust. So, God, that Denny's, they must have hated us. We would show up. You know, you're teenagers, and they would just be like, oh, my God, really? You're here again? We went there one time, and there's like 15 of us. There's like a whole ton of us. And we're sitting at a table. And Kenny Haynes, who I've mentioned before, Kenny Haynes is the monster. Kenny Haynes was a guy who transferred to our school and from Texas. He was like a 6'4", 280-pound guy, and he was fucking hysterical. And he would talk in a sing-song. Oh, what is happening, Schmitter? Like just weird. He was one of the funniest guys I ever met. So we're in Denny's one time, and he goes, you know what? I'll bet I could drink that whole bottle of ketchup. And it was like, we're like, dude, you can't drink a bottle of ketchup. And he's like, I could drink an entire bottle of ketchup. So then again, as kids will do, we all start going, well, wait a minute, he can't drink. And then the money starts flying out. There's no way. I will bet you can't. I'll bet I can. Money starts flying. Everybody's putting money on the table in a pile. And I'm the only one who's sober. So my friends are like, all right, you were in charge of this. And he goes, well, look, I can't drink it like this. It's too thick. And he goes, Schmitty, do something, like figure out what to do. And I'm like, all right. So here's what I did. We had smuggled beers into the Denny's, of course. My friends did. I didn't because I don't drink. So I take one of the beers, and I go into the restroom, and I pour the beer into the bottle of ketchup. Like I filled, and then also, I don't know why I did this, because maybe I was being a little mischievous. I don't know, mischievous. I don't know how you want to pronounce it. I then put hot water in there as well. So it was like beer and hot water mixed in with the bottle of ketchup, and I put the lid on it, and I shook it up. So I shook it all up, and then I brought it back to the table, and I go, all right, here it is. I cut it. I've cut the ketchup to a point where you can get it down. And everybody's like, and now other tables are getting involved because there's like other young people there, and then like some truckers, and they're like, there's no way he drinks that bottle of ketchup. So everybody's putting money on the table. And it's one of those giant tables where we're all sitting there, and everybody's kind of surrounding it. And the waitresses at this point have surrendered. They don't want him to do it, but there's nothing you can do. And it's me and Harbin and Laporta and all these different guys, and all this money's in the center of the table. And I give Kenny the ketchup, and I'm like, all right, buddy. And we've already eaten too. Like, so our table is covered in there's empty plates of food and whatnot. So he takes the bottle of ketchup and he takes the top off, and everybody's like, come on, monster, come on, you can do it, buddy, chug that ketchup. So he takes the ketchup bottle and he looks at all of us, and he takes it, boom, he just starts chugging. So he's chugging and he's drinking, and it's hot water and beer and ketchup mixed up, and he's drinking it and it's coming out of the side of his mouth, but he's still drinking it. He's putting it down, and then you see his face. He hits the ketchup. So he's drinking. He's like glug glug, and then he goes, ugh, and you see his face, and he's drinking, chug, and he's trying to swallow it, but it's so thick. Because I tried to shake it up and cut it as best I could, but now there's ketchup and beer like running out of his mouth, kind of, and he's drinking it, and we're all just. And now it's a zoo. I mean, it is a Denny's full of people just like cheering, going, "Come on! He can't do it!" Screaming. He's chugging the ketchup, money on the table, food everywhere, and finally Kenny he's chugging and the ketchup, and then finally he just goes, "Blah!" and he fucking vomits out ketchup and beer and breakfast and onto the table, into the money, because again, all of the money is piled up in the center of the table, and he just unleashes just this torrent of ketchup, breakfast, and beer. And everybody, it's that great noise of everybody's like, yeah, come on, get it, oh. And he just like, and he's like holding on to his gut, and he's laughing. That's the best part, is he's laughing too, and it's just like, just goo is dripping out of his mouth, and he's laughing, and we're fucking dying because it's the funniest thing we've ever seen, where he just unloads onto the table. The money is it's covered in ketchup and beer, and it's just, it is awful. It is so awful. But it's just this room full of people just high-fiving like, that was, dude, I'm never going to forget that. That was genius. And finally, like, everybody's like, well, like, what do we do? Like, he didn't do it, but I mean, I guess somebody won, but does anybody really want that money? And finally we all just decided, you know what, Kenny, take that money. That's your money. And fucking Kenny took that money. You're goddamn right he did. He scooped it all up, and I think he went in the bathroom, rinsed it out or whatever, but he took it. He fucking took it. I don't blame him. I would have taken it. What the hell? Just for the effort? That guy put down half a bottle of warm beer and ketchup. That was gorgeous. I think actually we made him pay for breakfast and he used that money to pay. And the waitress is like, really, the final insult, you dick? We have to clean up that entire mess, and now you're paying with this vomit cash? You are truly a dick. That Denny's is still open. Like, I wonder if I went in there now, if they'd just be like, no, I don't think so, friend. Because I would, like, routinely steal food from there, and that would always be where you'd wind up hanging out. Oh, Jesus. Just awful. Oh, the monster. So here's the story. So then, like I said, my mom's out of town, and we all, we're at my house, and over the course of 2 weeks, I'm having people over, I'm spending money, we're eating out, I'm ordering pizzas and buying things, and so finally my mom calls, she's going to be gone for like a month. Okay, so she trusted us for that long. She calls up and tells us, you know what, it looks like it's going to be 6 weeks that I'm gone. And we're like, all right, well, that's no problem. Everything's fine. She's like, are you doing okay? And, how's the money holding up? And I'm like, we're fine. I'm on a budget. Listen, I'm on a budget. I have spent everything out of the savings account as much as I possibly could. I get it. My mom didn't, she put me on like two different, like she had a different bank. She was in like 3 different banks, but she gave me one bank the access to that. So, I wound up spending like $800 out of the savings account in 2 weeks. Like, I mean, just doing nothing. You're in high school, so it's like buying food or going out to the movies. We went to the Cubs game. Me and a bunch of friends. We actually took my mom's car and we went to the Cubs home opener where they took on they played the Mets. And we went to that. So I was just spending all this cash. So then my mom calls. And she's like, hey, I'm actually coming home Monday. This is on Friday, she calls. She goes, I'm coming home Monday. And this is 2 weeks early? And I go, what? And she's like, I'm going to be home Monday. I'm hoping to get home Sunday, but, it looks like probably Monday. And I'm like, are you sure? I mean, how's Grandma? She's like, no, Grandma's much better, and, we're trying to figure she's probably going to come back home and live in Chicago, so she'll be closer, and I don't have to be here for so long, but, I've been away a long time, and this makes no sense, and I got to get back to work, and I'm just like, oh, okay. So we hang up the phone, and I'm just like, what the fuck am I going to do? I have no idea. So I call some friends, and I go, guys, we need a plan. I mean, we got to figure something out. And my friends, Kenny, the monster, Kenny Haynes, and then Mark Young is a friend. This is a guy who I would routinely like argue with, and we didn't get along, and I was not a fan of, at least in high school, like that kind of thing. And it's funny, if I saw him now, we'd be friendly and friends and stuff, but just have those stupid, like, ridiculous. I don't like that guy. Like, for no reason when you're, I want to say when you're in high school, but fuck, I still do that now. I'm not going to lie to you. Fuck, I hate that guy. Why do you hate that guy? No reason. Just fucking hate him. But Mark Young came up with $200, and Kenny Haynes came up with $200. Like, they gave me money. Like, they just said, you know what, here. Because they had been involved in the parties, and they kind of knew what was going on, but they came through with cash. Like, it was, like, insane. And I'm still, like $500 light. But I figure that I can go ahead and say, I had to spend some money. I mean, I can get out of 500. 900's a little high. So I whittle it down, and then I come up with the plan. And I say to Kenny, I'm like, hey, let's do this. This is awful. I got a coffee can, and I cut a little thing in the top, and I went and sat outside at the mall with a sign that said I was collecting for UNICEF. And I sat outside, and I was there for like 7 hours on Saturday, and I tried to get Kenny. I tried to get Kenny to do it like at another location. So then I'm like, hey, dude, we're going ahead and we're double teaming this town and we're making some extra dough. And he's just like, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna do that. I said, you sure? And he's like, yeah, I'm out probably for that. The loan was enough. So I said, all right. So then Sunday, my mom calls and says she would be home Monday. So I knew I had Sunday to operate. So I went and sat outside of Eagle, which is a supermarket, with the UNICEF can all day on Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday, I wound up collecting another $175 for, it's funny. I said it was for UNICEF. It was really for MeNICEF. But I was able to score $175 and whittle it down even further. And then my mom came home and was pissed that I had spent as much money as I did, not knowing that I had somehow come up with $575 that believe me, if that was gone, I think she would have murdered me. My mom did not fuck around, and I think she absolutely would have just fucking crucified me if she found out that, I mean, to this day, obviously she doesn't know. I haven't told her, nobody knows. And but yeah, and I don't know if I've ever told the UNICEF story to anybody. Like, I don't know if, I think some of my friends know, but but for 2 days I sat with a lawn chair and a coffee can and a homemade UNICEF sign, collecting. And because I didn't even know what UNICEF was when I was a kid. All I knew was UNICEF was the box you got on Halloween, and you tried to get some money. I figured as a kid, you figure it's for kids who don't have Halloween. Like literally, you're like, oh, we're collecting money for kids who don't have costumes and can't get candy. Like, I mean, I didn't know what it was. All I knew is it was like, to me, it sounded better than American Cancer Society, because American Cancer Society, I knew what they did. So then if I'm collecting money for them and I don't turn it over, then I'm like, oh, you're a dick, dude. Like, cancer is running rampant because you didn't give this $175. What if they're that close? What if they're always, because then for the rest of my life, I would always think they were within $175 of curing cancer, and I could have been the guy who did it, and I didn't. But instead, I went with UNICEF because I didn't even know what the fuck they did. Who knows? They could be planting trees to save the earth, or they could be giving kids clothes, or they could be, I don't know what the hell they're doing. They're scrubbing floors. I don't fucking know. Who knows? All I know is they're $175 light because I didn't want to get in trouble. But people were very generous giving for UNICEF. Although, you know what? When you think about it, I was out there probably like 12 hours over the course of 2 days. Bucks and 175. What did I make? $10 an hour? If that, a little over. That's weak. You know what, folks? I think I should have gotten a lot more than that. Those people should have definitely. I wouldn't have gotten in as much trouble if those people would have come through. Damn you, city of Bolingbrook. And also, you know what? I grew up in Bolingbrook. Like, those people know. Like, you had to know that those people knew me, sort of. Like, and they're like, really? You were collecting for UNICEF alone with a coffee can and a lawn chair? Really? But, there were enough people who wound up giving and thankfully saved my ass. Saved my ass at least until my neighbors told my mom about the parties and everything else that I had at my house. And I still wound up getting my, ass kicked. But at least I made a dent in the cash so she didn't completely freak out, because that would have been awful. So, go ahead and enjoy that story, folks. That's fantastic. And yes, once I got older and I was making money, I did give UNICEF $175. Please don't think I wouldn't do that. That would be ridiculous. But at the time, it helped. That's what UNICEF helped a young man who was in need. I can tell you that. If you ever wonder what UNICEF does, just go, you know what? They help young people in need. That's what they do. Oh, I got in trouble this week. I'll tell you that. Karen and I were eating, and she, I don't, because we had just seen Religulous, and so we were talking about that. And my wife enjoys religion, and was raised Catholic, and is she has her own beliefs and stuff, but she also she has a lot of faith. So I believe in honesty, sort of, and we were sitting there, And she's like, what would be the first thing you would do in heaven? And I says, what do you mean? And she's like if you could do anything at all, like, I go, what do you mean anything? She goes, anything you wanted. What if they did, and no judgments? No, they would never say anything to you. There was no wrong answer. Whatever you wanted to do in heaven, what would be the first thing you would do? And I said, well, I got to be honest with you, and this is going to sound crazy. I could do anything I wanted. And she's like, yeah. And I go, well, but it's just me. Like, I could do anything. She goes, yeah. I said, I would have a three-way with Pam Anderson and Anne Margaret from 1975. She goes, what? I said, you said there's no judgments. Like, they wouldn't, I mean, you could do whatever you wanted. It's like your heavenly reward and whatever you could do, and nobody judges, and they're not going to tell you, and it's nothing weird. And she's like, well, I guess. And I go, I would want Pam Anderson, like dirty Pam Anderson, not Baywatch, even like after, like spin fuck chair, shaved vagina, fucking hot white toenail polish Pam Anderson, and 1975 from Tommy in the outfit from the baked beans scene in Tommy, and Margaret, and me in a crazy three-way for like a week. And she's just looking at me. She's like, why would you say that? I said, well, I mean, I'm being honest. Like, you asked, because they don't judge me, right? Like, I mean, it's not like God's going to go, dude, that's the worst choice ever, and send me to hell. That's not going to happen. And she said, well, but that's what you would choose to do in heaven? I go, well, what am I supposed to do? Read like an old book, or, there's not this, I would imagine you pick something that you didn't get to do that you wanted to do. So why not put that together? I'll hook that up. And she just shakes her head. She just looks at me and just like, ugh. Like she's disgusted. But yet she kind of understands, I guess. I don't know. She was just... And I said, well, what would you do? She goes, I'd want to see my grandmother. And I said, well, I mean, I'd want to see my grandmother, but afterwards... I like my grandmother too. I mean, I love her, I mean, I miss her. But come on. And I said, really? That's the first thing you pick? She goes, yes, that's what I would pick. I would want to see my grandmother. I said, all right, well. I said, well, I mean, I hope we go on separate days then. Because that's going to look pretty awkward if we die in a car accident and we show up together and they go, all right, it's good to see you guys here. What do you guys want to do now? Because you're going to go, I want to see my grandmother. You know what? I think I want to have a three-way with Pam Anderson, but dirty Pam Anderson, and 1975 Aunt Margaret. And I go, then they'd judge me. If I had to do it again, like standing next to you, then I would definitely be judged. So let's hope we don't show up together. So she wasn't happy. But I mean, seriously, wouldn't you? Never mind. All right. So I didn't think it was that bad. I thought, I'm being honest. She wanted honesty. But then weirdo that listen to this. She said this. We went to the movies. We're at the ArcLight, and we're walking out at the ArcLight Theater. There's like a courtyard outside where there's usually like a band playing, and there's all this stuff. So she and I are walking, and I go to pay for the parking, and there's a midget walks by, like a little person, a man, and he walks by us, and she looks at me, and just kind of like makes a face, like, did you see that guy? And I go, yeah. She goes, he was the perfect height to suck my nipples. I said, what? She goes, seriously, like I wouldn't have to bend down, and he wouldn't have to like get on his toes. He was the perfect height. She goes, I could have walked right up to him and just popped a nipple right into his mouth. I just went, do you think that every time you see like a midget? Like, do you have a midget thing? She's like, no, I'm just telling you that he was, like, it was weird. Like, he was the perfect height for it. He wasn't like technically a totally small guy, like a real little person. He was kind of an in-between. he was an in between. That's what you call them, I guess. Instead of midget or dwarf, he's a dwidget. That's what he was. He wasn't a dwarf and he wasn't a midget. He was a dwidget. But she's like, yeah, she goes, he was the perfect height where I could literally, like, if he kept walking and I kept walking and I turned right there, just a nipple right into his mouth, he wouldn't even have to move, not even flinch. I went, well, all right. Thanks for telling me that. I'm glad that you went ahead and cleared that up for me, because I was wondering as he walked by, I was like, I wonder if that guy, if you could go ahead and just put a tit right in his mouth. Yeah, I guess you could. According to Karen, who thinks about this stuff. So don't get on me for my crazy heavenly three-way. You're thinking about filling a midget's mouth with nipple. Back off. A dwidget. You're trying to get that dwidget a mouthful of nipple. I could have a three-way with whoever I want. So, like, who's she having a three-way with when she goes to heaven? Fucking Billy Barty and Peter Dinklage? That's what she's going to do when she goes to heaven. She wants a three-way with Billy Barty and Peter Dinklage. And is that technically a three-way if it's two midgets? Because that's just one guy. You stack them on top of one another. You got to get four midgets for a three-way because you put them each on each other's shoulders, and there you go. You got two guys. That's a three-way with. If you want to have a three-way with midgets, you got to have four midgets, because then they get on each other's shoulders like the Master Blaster at Thunderdome, and then you go to work with them. So it's like four dudes, but they're actually two guys. I am gonna get my ass kicked by a midget. But this guy, yeah, Dwidget. Like the guy was, he was like a half and half. All right, so there you go. Folks can write me at all you midgets can write me. And midget's bad, right? Isn't you're not supposed to say midget? Like they hate that word.
Term.
I thought it was.
A midget are medical terms.
I heard the midget is. I heard that's like the M word. Like they're like, oh, dude, you can't say midget. We're like little people. It's like, yes, you are, but at the same time, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you're also a midget. I don't know if anyone told you that. Wow, I'm in trouble. So, go ahead and write me. If you're angry, please, if you're angry, go ahead and write me. Mike at MikeSchmidtComedy.com, or you can get me at MySpace.com/MikeSchmidtComedy. Go ahead and get me there, and go ahead and subscribe at iTunes or leave a review at iTunes. I would be happy if you did that. That's fine. Thank you so much. Also want to remind you guys that ComedyFilmNerds.com still exists, and I've written 2 columns for them. One of them is up right now. It's a piece about a movie that I saw last week called How to Lose Friends and Alienate People, and then I also wrote a thing about Religulous, which is I've written and submitted. I don't know if it's up yet. It wasn't up as of last night, but and this is Wednesday. You'll hear it Thursday. Who knows? Whatever. So go keep checking, because I've got one piece there and one piece in the pipeline. So go read those and frequent there and buy everything and have a good time at ComedyFilmNerds.com. And also go. Remember, next week I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't know if there's going to be a show next week. Because I will be in Vegas. I get to Vegas on Monday, and I'm there Monday to Monday. I'm there all week. So there may be no show next week. There will be something put up. I don't know if it might not be a full show. It might just be me telling a story. It could be a full show. I have no idea what's going to happen the rest of this week. Lily's schedule is very busy. And I'm lucky enough that she's able to find time to do what she does. To ask her to do a second show this week is a bit much, and to ask me to do a second show this week is also a bit much. I'm not going to lie to you folks, because I'm on fumes half the time. Thank God I talked about Young Homeless Guy today, and it made me remember the UNICEF story. So, but I'm at the Riviera next week. If you happen to be in Las Vegas, October 13th through the 19th, that's a Monday. There's 2 shows a night. I'm the host and MC next week, me and a guy named John Fish. And I think Russ Rivas is the headliner, I think. I don't know Russ. I know John Fish is a very funny guy from New York. I've never met John, but I heard he's great. So come and see us next week at the Riviera Casino in Las Vegas if you're there. And if you're there, let's have lunch. Let's do something. Call me if you're bored and doing nothing, because when I go to Vegas, I'm that guy, man. It might as well be any other road gig for me. I'm going to be watching baseball playoffs and doing shows, and then sitting in my room and going down to Extreme Couture and trying to do jiu-jitsu and meet Randy. So, go and so I'm bored and I'll be doing nothing in Vegas is my point. So if you're there, call me and we'll hang out. And by hang out, I mean I will not pick up the phone. So go ahead and give me a call. If you're in Vegas next week, come out to the shows at the Riviera. That'd be great. And we'll all have a good time. And I will tell you this, the following week, just in case we don't do a show next week, I want to tell you that October 20th, I will be hosting a burlesque show with our friend Lily. That'll be October 20th. The Monday Night Tease show at the 3 clubs in Hollywood. There will be information on my website and a link and everything that you can follow in the communique. But go ahead and come to the show. It's a show called Heroes and Villains, and it's a theme show where people will be dressed up as villains. I think someone's dressed up as and it doesn't matter what they're dressed up as, because eventually they will be undressed as that person. So someone's doing the Penguin from Batman. Eventually they will be undressed as the Penguin from Batman. So come and check that out. The show is called Heroes and Villains. That's October 20th, the Monday Night Tease show at the 3 of Clubs in Hollywood on Santa Monica. Where is it? On Santa Monica? It's on Santa Monica Boulevard. So come out and check it out. I will be the MC there as well. And there'll be plenty of naked chicks. See, that's the best part. Nobody cares about me. I'll be there. You can get my nonsense for free on the web, but naked chick, well, you can get naked chicks for free on the web too. You know what you could do? Go and like play my podcast and then go surf porn. And then you don't have to come to the Monday Night Tease, because essentially you're watching people fuck while I make you laugh. So there you go. That's perfect. Tie them together. But if you want to see that live, no fucking, of course, but I mean, unless things get really crazy, come out to the Monday Night Tease and check it out. There'll be great dancers and a lot of fun, and then I'll be there trying to be funny and enjoying myself. So please come on out and we'll all have a good time. Why do I say that? Well, because we will. Everybody will have a great time, I'm sure. It'll be so come to Vegas and see me, and that'll be good. Karen and I, Karen's gonna kill me when she hears the show. Well, not really. I mean, she lived it, so I tell her all the time. I go, you lived it, so there's nothing you can get mad about. We got. You know what we saw, because I wrote a piece for How to Lose Friends and Alienate People, which is a movie we saw. And go read my thing that I wrote about it on Comedy Film Nerds, and you'll read what I thought about it. I don't want to give it away, but I don't know if I enjoyed it or not. So go check out the review. But in the movie, there's a guy, and he's constantly trying to get girls. And he has, like, pickup lines, and he's trying to be all crafty. And afterwards, Karen was like, did you ever have pickup lines that you used? And I was like, no, I was just always me. I'm a jackass. I would just kind of talk in circles. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, well, it's funny because twice, like I had one, the best line I ever had in my life was I was talking to a girl. I used to, I would date women with low self-esteem. Let's put it that way, because it would be, I hate to be this guy, but men know that you can kind of, that's kind of your ticket. You know what I mean? You're like, all right, well, if I want to get laid, I'm going to go ahead and find that. And especially married women. Like I said, I would date married women, and when you'd get to talking to them, you would find out that they were, either not being paid attention to, or things weren't going well in their marriage, so you knew what they were kind of looking for. So all you had to do is show them some attention or be a nice guy. And guess what? You were about to violate a commandment. So there was a girl named Wendy. I told Karen this story. There was a girl named Wendy. She would work out. I worked at a gym. I was a counter guy at a gym. This is back when I was, strapping young Mike. I wasn't crazy 500-pound Mike. I was, wow, that guy's fairly good looking Mike. So I was there. And this girl, Wendy, this woman, Wendy, would come in and work out. And this is in the, early 90s. So she would wear a leotard, and it was a G-string. Like, she had leggings underneath it. And like those, remember those shows, Aerobicize, that would be on Showtime that you would want to jerk off to? That's what she would look like. I mean, she would come in and she had, fake boobs before fake boobs were cool. And she was just hot. I mean, she had this crazy body, and she would stretch in the middle of the gym. Like, she loved the attention. That was the whole deal. And she would be, she'd be sitting there with her tied up like a pretzel. She'd have her legs behind her head. And every guy in the gym would just make furtive glances. They'd be looking at her. And the thing is, it was a mirrored gym. So you'd be looking in the mirror to catch the other mirror to see the angle and see her ass. Like, it was that everybody would be fighting over the one treadmill where you'd get a perfect shot of her vagina. So it was like, and so she would come and talk to me, and I at the time wasn't really thinking about it. I was just like, because this is back, when I was going out every night, and I wasn't thinking that she was, interested. But then the more she talked to me, I was like, well, I got a shot here, even though she's married. She would always mention her husband, then she kind of like, oh, but he's always busy, that kind of thing. So I could see that she was a little damaged, like, she wanted attention. So this is the line that did it. She comes over and she's talking to me one day, and she was all nervous and stuff. And I was like, hey, do you want to, like, maybe we could just go have lunch or coffee or something sometime. And she's like, what? Oh, I no. Oh, and she got all weird and flustered because like she was fishing for that kind of attention. But then when she got it, she had no idea what to do with it because she was married and didn't know what step to take here and where to go. And she's like, well, and she's like, well, okay, maybe I'd like to do that, but it might be fun, or maybe we get a group of people, and maybe so she's all flustered, and I waited it out, and I was like, come on, it'll be fun, let's go. And she's like, well, you see me here at the gym, like I don't know what you're expecting, I don't know what I don't know what you're expecting, and I fucking looked at her and I just went, I'm expecting Wendy. That's all I'm looking for. And guess what? Out of the park. Next thing you know, we're in the car, I think, fucking. I mean, it was like it's all you had to do, just that look, that kind of that glance down at the ground and just be like, you know what? I'm expecting Wendy. That's all I'm looking for. Wow. Perfect. So perfect that, again, 18 years later, I'm like, yeah, that was it. That was the line. And that's the best one I ever used. Like, afterwards, because she immediately just like, like all flustered and weird, and immediately like wrote her number. This is how flustered she was. Wrote her number on her hand. I'm not kidding. Like, just went, oh, well, here, let me, wrote her number. Oh, wait a minute. And then she had to write it. Like, she's like, I gave her a piece of paper. Like, and she wrote it for me. That crazy. That's how perfect that line was. So proud of it. So that was a line that worked. But then a line the line I never, like the cheesiest line ever that I came up with, didn't you? We were, when my friends and I were going to Cooperstown. We were in the airport waiting to go. And it was me, Max, and Jeff, and Dennis, and Big Guy. And we're sitting there, and there was this hot girl. I mean, just hot. Retarded hot. Like the kind of hot that makes you just want to go, you know what, fuck it. I'm never going to get laid again after seeing that. Because, honestly, I'm going to fuck her in my brain forever, and that's enough. Literally, that I don't ever need to get laid after fucking her in my head. So she was there and was crazy hot. And we were all like, dude, because again, it was guys on the road and we're all like married or girlfriends or whatever. And we're like, well, let's take a shot at, come on, somebody take a shot at this, right? Doesn't somebody have to go and take a shot? But we weren't really going to. We were just fucking around. So then we kept coming up with lines that we would say to her. And we were just, and all of us, and we were doing it in the voice of Morris Day, which is because that was making us laugh. It was always like, "Excuse me, miss," and then we would drop like some crazy line. So my favorite one that I came up with that I didn't get to use was, "Excuse me, miss, I was about to make the most important phone call of my life, but I seem to have misplaced your number." And my friends are just like, "You have to go do that one right now." And I'm like, "No, come on, dude, seriously." And they're like, "Dude, do it. Just do it." And then she went and got on her plane. I was furious. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I wouldn't have had the balls to do it. But just to see what she would have done, obviously she probably would have just rolled her eyes and went, "Whatever, jerk." But that was the line I didn't get to use. "Excuse me, miss. I was about to make the most important phone call of my life, but I seem to have misplaced your number." Oh, Morris Day's a genius. But, and let's all root for the Phillies. I don't know if I mentioned that. Did I mention that? I know I mentioned it last week. Phillies won, folks. Phillies came through with a big win. And I will tell you this. I was really hoping that the Phillies would play the Cubs because then I could tell a story about the Phillies and the Cubs in a game that I went to as a kid, and it would have been relevant and would have made sense. But no, it's not relevant, and it doesn't make sense. I was a kid, and I went to a Cubs-Phillies game, and whatever. I'm not even going to go into it. If the Phillies would have played the Cubs, then I would have absolutely told you. Why am I even teasing it like a weird dude? Who cares? So the bottom line is I'm disappointed because I'm originally from Chicago, and the Phillies are the Phillies, and I want them to kick everybody else in the face. But at the same time, I like to see the Chicago teams do well, and for the Cubs and the Sox to both lose, and the Cubs to lose in the fashion that they lost is just brutal. I mean, I just can't even imagine. I have a friend, my friend Mike Toomey's a huge Cub fan, and I wrote him after the first game, and I was like, "Are you going to make it through this month?" I said, because that Grand Slam took the air out of the state, not just the stadium. And he wrote me back, and he said, "You know what, dude? I figured that this would happen, and I'm predicting more of the same tonight." He goes, "So I'm not worried about it. I'm sure that's what's going to happen." And I just think that's got to be such a terrible feeling. What a horrible mindset to have that your team was the best team in the league. I mean, they were killing everybody, and to just in your mind just go, yeah, they're going to lose. I know they're going to lose. And I know Cub fans, but even if I don't know you and you're a Cub fan, or even if you're a Brewer fan or a White Sox fan or an Angels fan, it's tough when you lose. So, and then the only thing worse is when people talk shit in your face about it. So it's awful. And I'm happy and I'm excited that the Phillies are still charging. So let's all, you know what, folks, if you lost your team, let's all get behind the Philadelphia Phillies. What do you say? For me, because the man who hasn't had a World Series championship since 1980, the man who, let's all go, you know what, that guy deserves it. Because it's about me. That's what it's about. So let's all root for the Phillies. If you don't have a team or if you need to get behind somebody, let's all jump on the Phillies bandwagon and fight off the Phillies. I'm a dick, folks. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a decent guy because I am a jerk. And I'm not a jerk. Man, I'm an awful guy. I'm not an awful guy. I am not a good guy. But I don't think I'm a bad person overall. So, and go ahead and by all means judge that. I'm kind of a jagoff. I got no future. What am I talking about? But I am a jagoff. And I'm not a jerk. I'm a nice guy. It's just I guess I have jerky tendencies. I've done so much ridiculous stuff, and then I wonder afterwards, I'm like, man, how come I don't hang out with anybody? Here's why, because you're a dick. You're fit. 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 You're fit.